Hello and welcome to The Gap, a series exploring the distance between healthcare innovation, product thinking and what people actually experience in reality. There's a huge amount of innovation happening across healthcare, but what we're really interested in is the human side of it, how all of that actually feels in practice. This isn't about promoting anything, it's a conversation about where things work, where they don't, and what we can learn from that. I'm Mark from the Foundry and I'm joined by Tim Holmes, the Foundry's healthcare consultant, who brings deep experience across the system, and Ian Parkinson-Sykes from Viamond, who's right in the middle of trying to drive change within wound care. So I think a good place to start is, Tim, from your perspective, what are the biggest challenges around launching innovation?
Thanks, Mark. I'll just take the frame of wound care at this time to talk about launching innovation in this market. So I was chatting with Ian a while ago around this subject, and one of the biggest issues I see is the number of people that require influence to be able to get a new product launched. So if I take you through the process of launching a new product, you tend to have an idea for an unmet need. You then come on board with a number of clinicians who give you direction in which way your product should go in terms of its functionality. Hopefully you listen to them as a marketing and MPD, and then you look at delivering that product. You get it to a product stage. You've got to go a huge amount of regulation just to get to that point where you have a registered, regulated product. There's a huge amount of work to be done there. Yeah. So that's sort of barrier and difficulty one. That's a challenge. It's a resource challenge, but smaller companies can get through that with the use of consultants and people like that. Your second challenge is then, how does the product get to the end patient? And again, how does the business get paid for that? So in the UK, there's a number of routes where you get paid through NHS supply chain or the drug tariff. And going through those hurdles is a huge amount of resource. The amount of evidence you require to prove that your product works, the amount of cost efficacy to prove that your product is cost effective against current usage, which is often quite difficult because if you've got something that's innovative and new, there isn't like a comparator there. So having a comparison product for something that's different is really quite hard. But you're drawn back into the lanes of what people want to see and the train tracks of how cost effectiveness is monitored. You get over those two hurdles, you've then got your ICBs, which are the different healthcare boards. Those areas are either they can be procurement led, which means that they're very cost oriented. They can be clinician led, which means they're very product and efficacy oriented, or there can be a combination of both. And having people with the knowledge and width of knowledge to understand in their ICB where the touch points are and the decision makers is really quite hard. So you've got to, and those ICBs are all over the country and they're different. So it's not just one size fits all. You could be selling a product in Hull and introducing it one way in Hull and introducing it another way in Bradford, 100 miles away. So it's really, really difficult to understand the people you've got to influence and how you influence them. Once you've got that, and you've got your drug tariff, you've got your NHS supply chain, and you've got the clinicians and the ICBs on board, you've then got to start talking to the people who are actually going to use the product, and the end user nurses who are actually going to be the ones who are putting the products on the patient. So if you think about all those stages through product development, regulatory, reimbursement, payment, clinical evaluations, then medicines management and the ICBs, and then getting to the end user. The reason the end users aren't seeing innovation very quickly is because that journey can take years, and there are so many people, and it's such a heavy resource that smaller businesses who are often bringing the true innovation really struggle to resource themselves through that huge journey. Yeah. And I know a business that I was talking to, I'm thinking 2014-ish, so 12 years ago, who were just put in their first drug tariff application. Their drug tariff application came through in 2025. Right, okay. 11 years later, it took them to persuade the drug tariff to allow the product onto the drug tariff. Yeah. Now, once they've done that, they've now got to go through all the clinical stuff and get the clinical recommendations. How does a business resource itself for that period of time without any sales revenues coming in? It's really quite tough. Yeah. So that's why I think the smaller companies who are bringing innovation find it difficult for the journey, right. But the larger companies rarely have the real innovation who can actually resource it. So it's quite a bit of a challenge for everybody.
A balance between the two.
Yeah,
yeah. And
difficult.
would you say both sides of that coin, they both underestimate that process, or is that?
I think the larger companies do understand it better because they've gone through it further. They've gone through it many more times, should I say, and they know the sort of game to play. And that's why I often feel that they don't bring as much innovation to the market, because is it worth bringing true innovation to the market or trying to get 4 or 5% market share of somebody else when that's a guaranteed revenue, that's an amount of money that they know they're going to get. So it's often the small companies who are really bringing innovation struggle, and the larger companies often look somewhere else to get their revenue generation or their sales growth.
Yeah. And bringing you in, Ian, on that at Biomont, how do you find it?
Well, so we have a product that's really different. It's available to everybody. I think one of the challenges that we've got is that although people know larval therapy, and they know it works, they know it's really good, they know there's loads of evidence behind it, because we're a small company and we don't have a sales team, people just forget about the product. So our challenge is, how do we just keep the product in people's minds and keep it going? We are looking at a new product as well that's in development at the moment, and we'll have very similar challenges to what Tim's just talked about, and it's trying to balance that and trying to keep revenues going whilst we go through all of these challenges.
And in facing that challenge and the awareness of that product with people, what kind of really works for you in terms of staying front of mind?
So it's a mixture. Because we don't have a sales team, there are two people that are in front of customers, and that's me, and it's our clinical trainer, Vicky. But we have to be really guarded with our time. We can't be everywhere all the time. So we have to really focus on the people that are already using and that really have the potential to keep using larval therapy. And then we use social media, so LinkedIn, Instagram, all the usual, and direct mail shots, but again with a slightly different message, whether it's one of our key customers that's already using quite high volumes, or it's somebody that's new and just interested in the product.
And is that where Marvin first appeared from? Maybe you could just explain who Marvin is for us.
So Marvin the maggot
is he with us?
He's with us today. So this is Marvin. I'd love to say that Marvin was a really clever marketing plan, but we were looking for giveaways to give away to people at exhibitions. We had these made. They went down really, really well. So I was bored in a hotel one night. I took a picture of Marvin the maggot and created a LinkedIn profile for him. And it's gone a little bit viral. I thought he'd actually get taken down after about a week, but now he's got about 1,000 followers, and people message Marvin the maggot via LinkedIn, and I have to answer on my work phone as Marvin the maggot, which it's good fun. It makes it a little bit different, and people
we love that innovation on both sides of it, not just in the product, but in the engagement.
Yeah, it's a little bit different.
I think given Ian's challenge of keeping things front of mind, Marvin's a great way to do that, because he's creating a bit of an emotional attachment between the product and the company and the actual end user. So it's more than just a clinical understanding of the product. It's like an emotional cue.
And would you both agree that because you're so focused sort of day to day, the market's so focused on working, pushing the products, that they forget that whole aspect of engagement and trying to build a connection with end users? And
I think some big companies just get it wrong with the engagement. I think it's a mixture of, sometimes the marketing and the messages are quite boring, and other times they just don't feel authentic. It's the people that we deal with are real people, and sometimes it's almost that some marketing's too glamorous and too scientific for the audience. It's like they don't fully understand who their customers really are.
Yeah.
So.
I think a lot of companies, and what I've seen in recent advertising and recent communication, is around, there's a lot of pushing of product, and there are lots and lots of pictures of wound dressings, either flat pictures or wavy pictures. Or I saw a picture recently at Wound Care Today where it was a must have been a 15-layer dressing, which must do absolutely everything. I think if you sat in that dressing, you'd probably be able to fly to the moon based on the sort of marketing message that the company was putting out. But it was an exploded picture of a wound dressing showing all the different layers and what they did. Now, that's been marketing a wound dressing for the last 20 years. People have been putting pictures of wound dressings, and I think they're wholly irrelevant and wholly get ignored mostly because one wound dressing looks very much like another one. And I think companies are fixated with pictures of wound dressings and a stat. So 25% of this does this 3 times faster, picks up 5 times more fluid. I think these are just little facts that I don't think even resonate with the end user because they're not what the end user is thinking about at that point. The end user is thinking about the patient they're going to see, the person they're going to talk to. And I think those flat pictures with just a couple of stats on them, it seems to tick a marketing box for somebody in an office, but it doesn't really resonate for me with an emotional engagement. I've used this saying that clinicians don't stop becoming consumers just because they put the uniform on. You still need to talk to them like they were if they were buying and communicating with a normal consumer product.
I think also they're not getting to the customer's needs either. If you just put a stat up saying we absorb 15% more than our competitor, what does that really mean? How does it affect the patient or the nurse that's going out to see the patient? I think the worst that I see quite a lot, I'm going to Yuma next week, big international exhibition, and there will be at least 5 companies there that are advertising we heal hard to heal wounds. Wow, and it means nothing because nothing can heal a hard to heal wound. Each product will have a little niche that does a job on part of that journey towards healing. But just coming up with a claim of healing hard to heal wounds, it doesn't mean anything.
And that claim in itself completely bypasses the nurse, the person who's doing the job, because you're basically saying to the clinician, our product is healing the wound. Nothing to do with you. All you've got to do is turn up and put it on the wound and it'll heal. And in reality, it is miles away from that. You know, every wound is different and every nurse will be faced with a different challenge at that point. And to just say, to blanket everything around our product heals wounds, I think it's doing a disservice to the clinicians.
So do you feel that there are certain companies that are reluctant to niche or focus on
I do. I think it is this fear, I think, of companies that they're going to niche their products and get just one small section of the market. But in trying to be too vague with how they suggest the products get used, they end up not performing and missing expectations. So I'm in the market of debriding wounds, and there are loads of products that debride wounds, and they all say the same thing. You know, use this product, it will debride your wound. But there are all sorts of different challenges, and what you'd use for one wound would be completely different to another wound, depending on the type of dead tissue that's on there, depending on the patient and how vulnerable they might be. I think companies need to move away from that and just be brave enough to kind of niche their products a little bit, because if you get it right and the product works, then people will use it in different areas naturally as well. So
I think that if a product works in a niche area, it builds confidence with the clinician that something's going to happen and the product actually does what it's meant to do. If you broad brush your product across every single sector, it's an unbelievable story. It can't do all of that, so I won't use it for anything. I think the better way to approach is to focus down on a need state or an unmet need, deliver that for the clinician, allow them to see that the product is doing what you say it will, and then lo and behold, you widen the indication, or the nurse thinks, or the clinician thinks, I can use this actually somewhere else or on a different type of wound, and then you get asked, will it work on this type? Oh yeah, it'll still do that as well, but it can build. You can build it that way.
So are you seeing shifts around access, you know, at the moment, formulary pressure and how that impacts on...
Yeah, I think access has always been quite difficult, but I
Yeah.
think nurses are under a lot more pressure now. So, particularly district nurses.
Yeah.
I mean, our company spends more time with decision makers, a lot of them in hospitals. But the companies that are trying to see district nurses now, they're so busy and so understaffed that they don't have the time to sit down every day with a different company and learn about what's out there. Even if it's new products that have just been listed on formularies, time's just too precious for district nurses. I think for more senior people, again, they're finding it difficult to see people.
Yeah.
But if you've got something that's really different, that can really help them, then they will make the time.
And the conversations you had, Tim, at Wound Care Today and latterly, bit before that, Wound UK, was that something that was coming up a lot, or?
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, it was coming up quite a lot. As Ian says, the senior, more clinical decision makers are keen to see innovation and keen to move it forward, and will help companies do that. I saw a number of presentations from a number of companies that was the company and the TVNs coming together to talk about how they were really helping patients with this. Yeah. And I think that there's still access to those people because they are keen to move the industry forward. But the end user contact, we talk about, you hear in the press about how the front end of the NHS is really struggling. And that is the district nurses who are out on the field every day. They are just running... I don't want to say running around. They're actually going time to time. They've got so time stretched. Yeah. Getting that end user time to talk about product and innovation is actually really quite hard because they're just so time starved. And the last thing they want to do when they've done, when they see 6 patients in the morning, come back to the base at lunchtime to have a half-hour respite. Yeah. They don't. It's difficult for them to then think, I've got to see a sales rep from such and such. So that, and whereas, so it is, they are time starved and it is really, really difficult. And I was getting a lot of feedback around that as well.
Yeah. And I guess that's where, in the past, it's been such an important communication tool to show empathy around that connection and what's involved and how to how a brand can match the behaviour and really as I say, show the empathy that they appreciate what's involved in the day to day.
And I think access is hard, but Ian and I always used to talk about having salespeople that customers wanted to see, that they didn't feel they had to see. They wanted to see them, and that was the whole personality of that individual and how they talk to their clinicians as, somewhat equals, as opposed to, hi, I'm from a company to talk to you about this product. We always used to start with, how's your day going today? And sometimes the conversation wouldn't get onto product. It would be around their challenges. And we would, and it's about those connections that the people out in the field actually make with the end user, that the clinician actually looks forward to seeing the salesperson. It's an entertainment for them, and it's something that is light-hearted relief, as opposed to, can you use my dressing on more wounds, please?
And I think you've got to give a reason as well, make it useful. Yeah. So that when you come out of a meeting with whoever it is, they feel like they've either learned something or they've enjoyed the meeting. They haven't just sat there and been given a sandwich and a leaflet and talked about the next foam dressing.
I mean, if you were, I'm going to land this one on you, in terms of how many meetings these people have sat through in a career, how many do you think it would be?
Oh, gosh.
It'll be loads. I mean, so district nurses, years ago they used to do probably 1 or 2 a week.
Right.
And reps would get booked in, they'd be given a 30-minute slot, they'd bring along some lunch. So that 30-minute slot becomes really valuable. Yeah. And some reps don't take advantage of that. They go in, leave some sandwiches and literally drop off some leaflets and walk out of the door. Yeah. Even at things like exhibitions, I don't know if you find it frustrating. I like to look at what other companies are doing, and exhibitions cost a lot of money. You've got the salesperson staying overnight the night before, and some of them sit behind a desk on their phones, and they just don't engage with the customers. Other companies just don't send the right people to exhibitions, especially the bigger ones.
Yeah.
So the big exhibitions that are really expensive.
Yeah.
And rather than sending the key account managers, the people that need to build relationships with customers, they'll just have marketing there that don't really know the customers. It's always useful to have marketing people there so they really understand what's going on in the market. But you need the people that are going to be dealing with these people after the exhibitions as well.
Yeah. And my biggest bugbear on exhibitions is you look at a stand and it's got 6 salespeople on, and they're all talking to each other.
Yeah.
They're all talking to each other, and they're probably all bitching about their monthly bonus or their quarterly bonus and things like that, and they're probably all having a whinge about the company they work for and how rubbish things are and how the car's rubbish and they're not going to get a new car for another year. And then customers and people who they should be engaging with are just walking by and picking up a leaflet, and I stand there and I say, you know, this is just a whole waste of your money, and nobody's controlling that. And you know, the art of doing an exhibition is around that engagement piece, having the right people who can talk and make that, you know, that those minute connections really work for you.
And the stand themselves, you know, how big a part does that play in, you know, in that process?
I think you need something that people want to engage with and want to look at. So anything that is that little bit different, whether it's Marvin the Maggot on the stand, or years ago one of our most successful was we created a pub at an exhibition. I don't know, you involved?
Mark did
the Crawford Arms.
Mark did the Crawford Arms,
And it was a silly idea. We didn't have any products out on display, but the stand was absolutely packed because it was a nice, relaxed environment. It's a little bit different, and we had plenty of sales reps, people on the stands that were just enjoying it and having fun with it.
And that would be the kind of thing people would talk about.
And that, you know, that creates that connection between company and end user. It's more than just a bunch of dressings. It's a personality. It's the business. And I walked around Wound Care today and Wounds UK and was gobsmacked by how literally boring most of it was. There was one company there who was making an effort to make their stand engaging, and I've given them feedback and they know who they are. But everything else was very much of a muchness. And you've got people having TVs with things on and then the TV not working. And it was just things like, you know, there's some basic stuff that's just, you know, letting the TV run its video until it has the laptop quote at the top. So it's to reboot it again. And it's just that you think, you know, there's no engagement here. This is just a company displaying itself as opposed to trying to create something that the clinicians and the exhibitors, not the exhibitors, the exhibitees, the people at the exhibition can engage with. And that's just dead simple, you know.
I think quite often people design these stands and they approach it as if they're selling to other business people. So they like them to look really, really sharp, really clinical, but not really designed for the end customer. And I do sometimes think that industry doesn't define its end customer very well. So they will create campaigns that are sometimes aimed at patients, when actually the patient has no choice over what gets used, or they're aimed at, like I say, a business person or somebody in finance. And that's maybe why some of the campaigns are quite boring and, you know, they lead with a graph that doesn't really mean anything.
So who is the real customer in wound care then?
I think it depends on the product and it depends on where you are in the evolution of that product. If you've got a well-established product that's available on lots of different formularies, then your customer is the end user, the district nurse. I think if you've got innovation, you've got to aim it for sometimes a group of people, like Tim said at the beginning, where there'll be a panel that could be somebody that's making a financial decision, somebody that's making a clinical decision, and somebody that's basing it on the relationship that they have with the company. So yeah, you need you're going for quite a broad audience, but you've got to pick who you're going for.
Your customer changes over time depending on the life cycle of where you are in your product. So when you're at the front end innovation, it's one customer, and as you go through that process to get to the actual end user. Your customer changes over time.
Yeah.
And that's where your sales operator has to be chameleon in some respects, that they can have these conversations at various different levels. And that comes down to a great level of training and a great level of understanding. But your customer actually changes over time for the actual product usage.
I wanted to kind of get the crystal ball out a little bit and talk about the future. We're talking about that going forward. And in the next sort of 12 to 24 months, what do you see the sort of where the pressure is increasing here? What are the key?
I think it varies on the company. I think if you've got well established. I think it depends on the company. I think if you've got well-established products, but they're completely relying on a brand name, and they're probably slightly overpriced, then I think that's going to be a struggle, because there are good generic foam dressings, generic products coming out that are as good. So I think there's some challenges there. I think for innovation, that's where the new companies and the new business really will be. You've got to have something that's different. I think you can't rely on having a standard product that's got a little bit of a tweak, but essentially it's the same. Because I don't think there's a reason for having those things. There'll be other companies setting up that just doing discounted products, but hopefully it will drive innovation, because that's where the market's going to grow now. People looking for things that are going to really make a difference, but being promoted in a way that actually highlights how those products are going to make a difference.
I from the two exhibitions I attended and talking to quite a few people in the industry over the last sort of 12 months, the changes in the drug tariff are being hailed as this is going to completely change and destroy the industry, because everything's racing to the bottom on price now. There are certain companies who are just head in the sand, it's not going to happen. Certain companies seeing it as opportunity, and certain companies saying this, we're leaving the UK. The UK wound care market is dead. Now, I think the industry is a little bit more resilient than that, and I think the industry will continue to innovate and continue to find not ways to get through it, but ways to get new products into market that actually builds that sort of value back up. So I think there is, in the short term, 12 to 24 months, there's going to be very much an understanding of there's a price element to everything and how you overcome that. And then from a long-term macro level, I think the advent of the AI world that we live in, I think there's going to become a much more educated patient and much more educated patient carer group. And I think patients will start to look at the treatments they're receiving from the nurses that are coming to them and finding out more about the products that are being used on them, and the carers will be much more savvy around finding information that so if my grandma is having a leg ulcer dressed, I'll want to find out what that product is, what it does, and why that nurse is using that. And if I put a few prompts into Copilot, they're going to tell me about it, and I'll ask Copilot, is there something better? And Copilot will come up with something, and I think those people will start questioning clinicians, whether clinicians like it or not. They will start getting asked questions, whereas before, as British people, we wouldn't ever question authority, really. If a nurse says this, we won't go, okay, we'll just say, yes, thank you very much, nurse, doctor, we will take what you want. But I've seen it from a GP perspective, where GPs are getting pressure to look at different medicines from their patients. And I think the same thing will happen. And I think industry has got to align itself that this will occur, and what support they're giving the clinicians to be able to have those conversations with the carers that isn't just a closed book. It's got to help them navigate through that sort of consumer world as well.
And I was going to ask about is there a risk that cost pressure starts to override innovation?
I don't think so, because I think there's always been cost pressures. You've always had to prove that your product, whether it's a unit cost or whether it's the treatment cost, is of good value. So I think that's always been there. And with really good innovation, if a product works and you get results, whether it's at one stage of wound healing reduced, or whether it's speeding up wound healing or saving nurses time, then they will help economically. So I think those pressures have always been there, and actually in some way those pressures drive innovation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or they could do.
Yeah, no, I think they do. I think as markets mature and value starts to leach out through price and unit price, and I think there's a difference between unit price and actual overall cost. Yeah. And people are fixated at the moment on unit price. Yeah. And I think there's that overall cost piece that if something takes 12 weeks now, can we make it 4? It may cost twice as much over 4 weeks, but it's a long-term cost. And proving that's quite difficult, and we all know that. But I think that will drive innovation because people will need to have value to put back into their businesses. So they will want to drive innovation and clinical usage. And, as population expands and gets older and we're all getting sort of fatter, more obese, skin's breaking down more, the market dynamics are still going to grow, and finding ways around to solve those problems is going to drive that innovation piece.
And given all of that, where we are now and as we've discussed about where things are heading, what does better actually look like?
I think it's doing a lot of things that have already been done, but doing it better. Yeah. So finding a real need, not just a make-believe need. Yeah. Finding a product that solves that need, but then making sure that you communicate that with all of the customers, so they really fully understand how your product's going to impact and what it does. Yeah. So
I think there's no sort of silver bullet that goes out there and heals wounds and does the things that some businesses are claiming. I think each patient is different, so that means that each salesperson has got to deal with their customers in a different way because all the patients are different. I think what looks good for me is companies that have a real connection with their end users that is more than just a box mover. It's companies that have character, personality, and businesses that, nurses or the end user clinicians want to be part of that journey with that company, and the company wants to go on a journey with that end user. I think that looks good to me, is that sort of, from a marketing perspective, it's all around emotional connection and how we create that. And that's sometimes not just with products, that's with company. And that, I think that is really, really key if businesses are going to be successful around, one, launching innovation, and two, what makes them good is around that, having that emotional connection with the end users, that it's more than a company. It's more than, it's just it's something you can't touch and feel, but it's a feeling that a clinician has around working with a specific business or a company or a brand, that they feel happy around doing that. And I think that's really key to success.
I think building trust as well. Yeah. It's a big decision. If you're used to using a product in a certain scenario, to switch to something else, you're taking a chance. You've got to really believe and trust the person that tells you that it's going to help. Yeah. I think one of the first things that nurses learn is to do no harm, and using a product incorrectly on the wrong patient in the wrong circumstances, the products can do harm. Yeah. So it's a big challenge for nurses to get that confidence and that trust to say, okay, we'll give it a go.
Yeah. I think it's that, I was about to use the words do no harm. It's that, you get presented with a wound, it's let's not stop it going any worse. That's your first port of call. We don't want this to get any worse. Once you've stalled that and got it to a point where it's not getting any worse, then we start the steps of going forward. And that is about the trust that Ian talks about with the person that's talking to them about what will help this wound healing process move forward. So, building trust is really important from a brand perspective.
I'm kind of at the end of sort of where I got to, so I didn't know whether there was anything we kind of not kind of covered that you feel.
Well, I think we covered most.
A little bit more there, or if there's anything you think, we could dig a bit deeper, or.
My overriding feeling, and you just may want to be the summary or however you want to finish this, is that the wound care industry is a little bit bland and a little bit boring and has got that. And my overriding feeling after 8 years out or 7 years out was I went back into Wounds UK and thought, why hasn't this moved on? I just felt so sort of desperate that nobody out there was really trying to be different, be innovative with their messaging and marketing. I think there's lots and lots of good companies out there with lots of great products, and some of the smaller companies will really struggle because of their budgets and their resources. But I just thought, come on guys, get a grip of this. Somebody stand out, somebody do something different. Somebody embrace a different way of doing things, as opposed to just, you got the feeling that all the bigger companies were looking at each other about what are they doing, and they were just trying to do it a little bit better than someone else, instead of going, let's just not follow each other, let's go and do something that's way out of the box and create engagement. I think in the industry, I think that will, somebody's got to jump out and go, right, I'm the jack in the box here, I'm going to do things different and I'm going to stand out. And I think somebody will do that, and somebody will be successful.
And I think that's the opportunity for smaller companies or SMEs. Quite often the big corporate companies, they'll have a brand image and a set of guidelines that were set somewhere else in the world, and they've got to follow those guidelines. And that's why quite often they all look pretty much the same. Sometimes they'll change a colour and then find out that the competitors changed to the same colour. If you're a small company, you don't have those restrictions, so you can do something that's a little bit different and get out there a little bit more.
Like Marvin.
Like Marvin.
There was, sorry, I did that. You spurred me on there, because there was something I saw at Wound Care today where one of the I would say in the top 5 international businesses of wound care has just rebranded and relaunched a product with a new name. And I know the marketing person at that company. I walked up to her and said, "What is that?" And she went, "I know, we were told we had to call it this."
Right. Okay.
And I was like gobsmacked that the company had branded this product in a certain way that was, from a UK perspective, was pretty unintelligible in terms of what you would actually call something.
Okay.
And I was sat there going, that's where global marketing has got away from the local marketing that still needs to be going on. I mean, I worked in global companies, and we still allowed the local marketing team to input into big projects that actually made it work in their local market. I think some of that's got really lost and diluted on the way. And that's one of the biggest crimes for me in marketing in businesses is you've still got to have a local element that just does that influence as well.
I think for smaller companies as well, one of the mistakes I see is they don't see that as a benefit, and what they try and do is look like a big corporate company, even though they're actually quite small. The other thing I heard at one of the exhibitions was a group of marketing people talking about how they need to be a marketing-led company, and the salespeople are arguing, saying, no, we need to be a sales-led company. And I hear this all the time, especially in big companies, about this drive to be one or the other. And actually, it should never be one or the other. They should be working hand in hand, because all the things we've talked about today, to really succeed and understand what the customer's needs are and how to communicate those needs, you need a combination of sales and marketing to just sit down and figure it out and chat and
work it out together, as opposed to one being the leader and the other one being instructed what to do. Without that collaboration, because the industry is still quite sales oriented in the respect that salespeople having one-to-one interactions with an end user. So that's got to be important. But what that message is coming down is, how is this message from the marketing team translating to that conversation? If it doesn't, it's all wasted. So it's about having that interaction between the sales and marketing teams where it isn't led by one or the other. It's a collaborative approach that we all sign up to and all agree on. And then converting that marketing message or the sales message into something that is really communicable down to the end user. And that's where I think the secret is in some of this.
And I think from sort of the foundry side of the fence in this, that's what's exciting about, and the role we've got to play in kind of joining the dots a little bit between teams and doing justice to the innovation of a product and bringing that innovation into how it connects.
Yeah, it's really important, and I think that that conversion of the marketing thought and the communication of the product and how to that operationally goes into a business is the key to the success of it. Because we've all sat, Mark, in meetings where the advertising agencies come in, presented a thing, and you've gone, that's really great, and that's really great, but I can't communicate that. My sales reps can't say that to the people out in the field because it just won't land. It'll land from an advertising and branding and corporate perspective, but it won't land when it's at the coalface.
Yeah.
And having that experience with the foundry that is taking those messages and making them work in real life is really, really important.
Great.
Cool.
I think sorry, I'm carrying on about that. I think being able to adapt that for the level that you're at as well. So a good marketing campaign, you can have a global message, you can adapt it for just the UK, but there might be individual needs. So if you've just had a group of products listed on a formulary, then you should be able to speak to marketing and say how we're going to get this very small message across for this one area. Because things like that really work as well, don't they? Doing things on a really local level,
micro level.
Yeah.
So I just wonder whether Marvin's got anything to say on the subject.
He stays fairly quiet most of the time.
Okay.
He's noisy on social. He's noisy on social media.
Yeah.
He says things to people that I'd be too scared to say.
So I think
which is another benefit.
I think we should thank Marvin for coming along. So.
He's thanking us. Yeah, it's been a nice trip out for him.
And I'm following on from that. I'd like to thank both of you for that.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you. Great and really interesting. And we we're watching the Marvin story, and we look forward to the next chapter in that.
Well, he's travelling to Hull with me next, so
he's so exciting.
He's well travelled.
And I sent that picture of Miguel from Spain when he came on holiday with us, when we saw Marvin's cousin, Spanish cousin in Spain.
He does have relatives all around the world. So.
And Tim, thanks.
You're welcome, Mark. Thank you very much.
Brilliant.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.